It's funny how much things have changed, right? Like how we get information these days. It used to be you had to like really go out and search for it.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's almost like a fire hose pointed right at you, this constant stream. So the really interesting part, I think, is figuring out what to do with all that. What's actually worth paying attention to.
Yeah, totally. It's like sifting for gold, you get all this raw material, but the real skill is in identifying those nuggets of actual insight.
Exactly, and that's what we're diving into today.
That's right. So what we have is a collection of writings called Dynaxioms. The guy who wrote them, he called them that, Dynaxioms.
Dynaxioms.
Yeah. Kind of like, think of it as a constantly evolving personal philosophy. He recorded these thoughts, ideas, observations all over several decades. I think it's a really unique opportunity for us and for everyone listening in to see how one person's perspective changed over time.
And you're not kidding about the range of stuff these Dynaxioms cover. I mean, we're talking about everything from the early days of the internet to how AI is impacting art. We've got cultural differences, the role of music, and even like the whole vibe of the 21st century. Buckle up, because there are some serious surprises and connections in here.
Oh, absolutely. And the hope is that these unexpected connections will spark some light bulb moments.
That aha feeling, yeah.
Exactly. So what we're going to try and do is pull out the essential wisdom from all these reflections and try to get a sense of the bigger picture, see how it all connects.
Sounds good to me. So where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, why don't we start at the beginning, literally the turn of the millennium, March 2000. There's a Dynaxiom from then all about how this guy saw the ideal future of the web.
Okay, so rewind back to the year 2000.
Right.
What was the internet like back then, to this guy at least?
Well, he was talking about how for the web to truly succeed, people would have to figure out what information was truly important and useful. Like the really essential stuff.
Makes sense. Cut through the noise.
Exactly. And then once you had that figured out, the key would be to make that information easy for anyone to find and access.
So it's not just about having the good stuff, it's about being able to get to it easily.
Precisely. And the analogy he used, it's pretty powerful. He said the web should work like a personal Bible, a core resource you could always depend on.
Oh, wow. Like a Bible.
Yeah, it's kind of striking, right, when you think about it. Back then, the internet was this new frontier, kind of like the Wild West. There was this real desire for structure, for dependability.
Yeah, especially if you wanted to use it to find information, to actually learn things. You'd want to feel like you could trust what you were finding. No one wants to wade through a bunch of junk.
Absolutely. And I bet that need for clarity, for a reliable source of truth, that probably still resonates with you today, even after all these years.
Oh, for sure. I mean, haven't we always been looking for ways to cut through the chaos? Find the signal in the noise?
Right. It's like a fundamental human thing. But what's really cool is how this whole Bible idea evolved. Jump ahead 25 years. And the writer is looking back at this early Dynaxiom. He mentions that this whole idea, this personal code of wisdom, he was thinking about it even before the internet existed.
Interesting. So it wasn't just a product of his experience with the web. It was something deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And looking back, he says that a website from back then, it was more like a recurring oracle or well that you'd visit over and over for guidance, not just a one-time source of truth.
That's a really neat shift in metaphor, from Bible to an oracle or well.
Isn't it? It's like a Bible suggests something fixed, unchanging. But an oracle or a well, that implies an ongoing process. You go back, you ask questions, you draw insights. It's a relationship.
So maybe our whole way of interacting with online information has changed too, right? It's less about finding the one definitive answer and more about this continuous back and forth, always learning and refining our understanding.
I think you're right on the money with that. It's like, yeah, from a static Bible to a dynamic oracle. What a shift. All right, ready to jump ahead a bit.
Lead the way.
All right, so let's fast forward a couple of years to 2002. This is where we get into the whole idea of how powerful ideas can be, like how they last. The Dynaxiom from this time says that the message, the idea itself, is more important than how it's delivered, the medium. Basically, good ideas will stick around no matter what form they take.
That's pretty profound when you think about it. Like the format might change, the technology might be completely different, but the core idea, if it's good enough, it'll survive.
Exactly. Take a catchy melody, for example. It might have originally been on a vinyl record, but now it exists in digital files, on streaming services. It might even be just in our collective memory. It transcends the original format.
It's like it becomes part of the culture, almost imprinted in our minds.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the 2025 reflection on this is super relevant to what we're dealing with today. It brings artificial intelligence into the mix.
Okay, how so?
Well, the writer is saying that as AI gets better and better at creating content, the unique ideas behind that content become even more important. AI can generate stuff, but it's the human spark, the original concept, that's really special.
Because that's what AI can't truly replicate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for you, and I'm guessing for most people listening who are bombarded with tons of content every day, this is crucial. It's about learning to tell the difference between something truly original and just another AI-generated imitation.
It's like finding those handcrafted goods in a world of mass production.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. And the point is that in a world where everyone has the tools to create, it's the really new, really deep ideas that stand out. That's what lasts, you know?
It's what makes something memorable, what gives it staying power. Okay, so we've got the enduring power of ideas. Where do we go from here?
Well, in 2003, there's a Dynaxiom that reminds us to be really careful about assuming everyone shares our values. You know, like thinking the world is all on the same page, culturally speaking. The writer uses this really vivid analogy. He says that if we assume the world is culturally flat, we might walk right off an edge.
Oof, that's a powerful image.
Right. And it speaks to something so important, like cultural differences are real and they can be tricky. We can't just assume our values will make sense everywhere.
It's a good reminder, especially if you're working with people from different backgrounds or traveling to different places. You've got to be aware of the nuances.
For sure. For anyone who's, trying to understand the world, this Dynaxiom is a call for curiosity and humility.
And the 2025 reflection on this point has some examples that really drive it home.
Oh, yeah. Like a story about Sister Amy. She was a missionary who went to China in the early 20th century. Apparently, her trip hit some major cultural roadblocks.
Things didn't quite go as planned.
No, not really. And then there's a more recent example from the mid-2000s about these evangelical rock festivals that were held in Morocco. You know, the kind with Christian rock bands.
Yeah, I remember hearing about those.
Well, those festivals probably weren't received the way the organizers expected. Different cultural context, you see.
Things can get lost in translation, even when it comes to something like music.
Absolutely. It really
Yeah.
makes you think, doesn't it? Like, we can't assume our message will be understood just because we intend it a certain way.
And there's this little detail in the reflection that I found so interesting. A Moroccan child at one of these festivals asked, "What are evangelicals?" I mean, it's such a simple question, but it just shows you how deep that disconnect can be.
It really underscores how crucial shared understanding is, doesn't it? And it makes you think, right, like how often do we just assume we're all on the same page? And what are the potential pitfalls when we're not?
Lots to ponder there. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. What do we got?
Okay, so sticking with 2003, there's this really interesting Dynaxiom about how the way we listen to music has changed.
Okay, music, tell me more.
Well, he starts by contrasting the experience of going to a symphony back in Haydn's time, the classical composer. That was the ultimate musical experience. Like Haydn's symphony, that was the essence of music, almost like what a rock concert is today.
Interesting. So a symphony back then was like the big thing, the main event.
Right. But then he compares that to how music is often used today, like as background noise on a clock radio or an early MP3 player, just something to fill the silence.
So it's like we went from this focused, almost sacred experience to just having music on in the background.
Exactly. And what's more, the Dynaxiom makes a distinction between this kind of casual music listening and what he calls the insulting use of music as an object.
Okay, insulting use.
Yeah, like using intentionally bad music for things like jingles or propaganda. Basically, music being used for a really basic purpose with no artistry.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. It's like manipulating music rather than appreciating it.
Exactly. But then he makes this really important distinction when it comes to work songs, like the songs people used to sing while they were working, He sees those differently because they were original, made by the people who sang them, and used to build community. It was about purpose and collaboration.
That's a really good point. There's something special about music that comes from the people who are actually doing the work, experiencing the thing they're singing about.
Exactly. And for someone like you who's constantly trying to sort through information and figure out what's valuable, this distinction is really interesting. It's like the difference between just passively consuming what's thrown at you and engaging with something that has real meaning.
Like the difference between junk food and a home-cooked meal, maybe.
I love that analogy. It's spot on. Okay, so ready to jump ahead to 2004.
Sure, what's next?
All right, in 2004, things get a bit more abstract. This Dynaxiom talks about how we structure creative works.
Structure, huh? Like the format of a song or a movie.
Yeah, exactly. He uses the example of musical variations. You know how sometimes in classical music you'll hear different versions of the same melody? Well, usually the main theme comes first, and then you get the variations. But this Dynaxiom talks about what if the theme came at the end, after all the variations?
That's a really interesting idea, like flipping the script on how you present a musical idea.
Totally. And the writer suggests that you could even apply this approach to film. Like imagine a movie where you don't fully understand the core theme until the very end. It could make for a really powerful reveal.
That's such a mind-bending concept. It would
Yeah.
definitely keep you on the edge of your seat trying to figure out how everything fits together.
Right. It's like playing with expectations. And for anyone listening who's interested in how to present information or arguments, this is a super cool thing to think about. Like maybe there are unconventional ways to build up to a conclusion that we haven't even explored yet.
That's a great point.
Uh.
All right, let's keep moving. What else do we have?
Okay, so let's skip ahead quite a bit. Let's go all the way to 2015. There's a Dynaxiom from this time that actually got revised later on. The original statement was pretty straightforward. It said, social media is a platform, not a medium.
Interesting. Platform versus medium. So what was the revision?
Well, the 2025 reflection goes back and says, actually, that's not right. Social media is both a platform and a medium. I love how he's able to go back and correct himself. It shows how our understanding of things can change over time.
It's like seeing his thinking evolve.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Social media has become so complex, it's hard to define it as just one thing.
You're right, it really has. And to explain this idea further, he uses the analogy of a Facebook canvas. He's saying that the artwork created on that canvas, it's shaped by Facebook itself. The size, the features, the audience, everything about Facebook influences the art that's made on it.
I see. So the platform dictates, to some degree, what's possible.
Right. And if we think about all the platforms we use to get information, it's worth considering how the platform itself influences the content we see.
It's like the platform isn't just a neutral space. It actively shapes how we experience things.
Precisely. It affects what gets created, how it's presented, how it spreads. It's super important to be aware of that.
So it sounds like 2015 was a big year for reflection on the digital world. What else was he thinking about back then?
Well, later in 2015, there's a Dynaxiom about how the words we use to describe our times, they can actually be really powerful.
Powerful how?
Well, he specifically talks about the industrial age and the information age. These labels, they're not just descriptions. They shape how we see the world, how we understand our place in history.
And they could even influence what we do next, right?
Yeah.
If we believe we're living in the information age, it might lead us to prioritize certain things over others.
That's exactly it. And he goes on to speculate that maybe the next era will be the intelligence age. And he asks this really thought-provoking question. What if we become so dependent on information, so reliant on AI, that we end up as slaves of AI?
Ooh, that's a chilling thought.
It is, right. It makes you really think about our relationship with technology. Are we using it, or is it starting to use us?
It's a fine line to walk, for sure. But then he throws in this really cool idea, this concept of backward compatibility.
Oh, right. So he's saying that even though we like to think about how advanced we are, elements of previous eras, even the Stone Age, are still around. They're still accessible to us. It's like this counterpoint to the feeling that old technology just becomes obsolete.
That's so true. Like, yeah, we might not use stone tools anymore, but the skills and knowledge behind them, that's still around.
Yeah, exactly. And the 2025 reflection on this brings up how we can still appreciate different art movements from the past, even in a world where AI art is becoming more common.
Like the past is always there, influencing the present, even if we don't always realize it. Okay, what else from 2015? This seems like a really fertile year for this guy.
Okay, well, there's another one that's super fascinating. It talks about this idea of slippage and how it relates to creativity. He's basically saying that sometimes when you're creating something, it's good to let go of some control.
So not being too rigid in your process.
Right. Like if you're too focused on the plan, on doing things exactly right, you might miss out on those happy accidents, those unexpected discoveries that make something truly unique.
Like you're saying, it's those unexpected moments that can spark a breakthrough.
Exactly. And he brings up some really cool examples like rock and roll. He suggests that maybe rock music lost some of its edge when it became super polished and overproduced. You know, back in the early days, it was all about raw energy.
Yeah, there was a certain magic in that rawness, that feeling that anything could happen.
Right. But then he contrasts rock with jazz. Jazz has always been about improvisation, about letting go of the sheet music and just feeling the music. And maybe that's why it's still so vibrant and exciting.
It's that element of surprise that keeps you engaged, makes you wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it's like sometimes the best things happen when you let go a little bit. So if you're listening and you're into any kind of creative work or even just problem solving, this might be a good thing to keep in mind. Maybe a little slippage is exactly what you need.
A little chaos can lead to amazing results. Okay, let's keep rolling. What's up next?
All right, moving on to 2016. This is when the Dynaxioms really start to grapple with the ethical side of artificial intelligence, especially how it relates to music. One Dynaxiom asks a very straightforward question: is it even okay for machines to make music? And then it gets even deeper, talking about the idea of musicians having mind clones. Would those clones be collaborators or competitors?
Whoa, that's getting into some deep philosophical territory. So what does he think about AI making music? Is it okay or not?
Well, the 2025 reflection offers a pretty interesting perspective. He says that in the future, working with AI might be seen more like using a specialized tool or even having a dedicated department. Not so much as competing with human creativity, but more like using AI as an extension of our own abilities.
So AI as a collaborator rather than a replacement.
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. But he's also very clear that there's something unique and fulfilling about creating without AI. Like, that's where the real magic happens.
Makes sense. I mean, there's a certain pride in being able to say, I made this myself. No AI assistance required.
For sure. And there's another Dynaxiom from 2024 that digs even deeper into this idea of AI-generated music. It points out something really interesting. When AI makes a piece of music, we don't usually say, wow, that's a great idea. Like, we don't ascribe those ideas to the AI.
Yeah, it feels different. It's almost like we intuitively understand that AI doesn't have ideas in the same way that humans do.
Precisely. And that's because there's this huge difference between a human catching an idea, like being inspired, and an AI just churning out content based on algorithms.
One feels organic, like it comes from a place of lived experience, while the other feels more manufactured.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it gets to the heart of what it means to be creative, to be human.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
Okay, so also from 2016, there's a Dynaxiom about the condition of art. He's basically saying that to truly experience art, it's not just about seeing or hearing it. It's about something more, something deeper.
Deeper how?
Well, like, maybe it takes time to understand a piece of art. Maybe you have to experience it in a specific context. It's not just about the immediate sensory experience. It's about how it makes you feel, what it makes you think about.
It's like art needs to resonate with you on a deeper level to truly have an impact.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what else from 2016?
Well, in another Dynaxiom from this year, the writer talks about ubiquitous computing, how computers are everywhere. And he points out that we've started to feel this need to disconnect sometimes, just like earlier generations wanted to turn off the TV.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Our brains need a break from all the stimulation sometimes.
Right. And he imagines a future where computers might be so integrated into our lives that we don't even need separate devices anymore, which on the one hand could be amazing, constant access to information, but he worries that we might lose those moments of quiet reflection, the space for daydreaming and just letting our minds wander.
Yeah, that unstructured time is so important for creativity and just for our mental well-being. It's like our brains need that downtime to process everything. I bet a lot of people listening can relate to that. Feeling that need to disconnect and just be present.
Totally. It's about finding the right balance. All right, ready for a slightly unsettling one?
Hit me with it.
All right, so in 2018, he poses this really interesting question. He's like, if everyone agrees that ethical AI is important, why isn't it a bigger topic of conversation in the media?
That's a good question. You'd think it would be all over the news.
Right. And his proposed answer is kind of scary. He says it's because untrained, unethical AI is already controlling the media.
Wow. Okay, that's something to think about.
Yeah, it really makes you question who's shaping the information we see every day, what biases are at play that we might not even be aware of. I mean, if you're someone who cares about being informed, this is a call to be even more critical about the media you consume.
Don't just take things at face value. Dig a little deeper. Look for those hidden agendas.
Exactly. Always question the source. Okay, ready to move on to 2020.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, so this one's from the heart of the pandemic. It's about architecture and how even though a building can be super beautiful, it can feel really empty without people in it, like a dead mall.
I think a lot of us experienced that during lockdown, right? Those spaces that were usually bustling with life suddenly felt eerie and deserted. I know I did.
Hey, totally.
Yeah.
And it just shows how important people are to creating a sense of place. Architecture isn't just about the building itself, it's about the life that happens within it.
It's the energy, the interactions, the stories that unfold within those walls that give them meaning.
That's beautifully said.
Okay, bring on the last one.
All right, last one. This is from 2021, and it's super empowering. It says that you don't have to be an artist to start a new art movement.
Really? Anyone can do it.
That's the idea. It's like saying that artistic innovation, it can come from anywhere. It could be from shared ideas, cultural trends, or even new technology. It doesn't have to come from the traditional art world.
So the power to shape culture, to influence how people see the world, it's more widespread than we might think.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what new art movements are bubbling up right now that we haven't even noticed yet.
It's an exciting thought. Well, that's the last Dynaxiom. What a journey that was. What are your biggest takeaways from all of this?
You know, what strikes me the most is just how much our thinking has to evolve to keep up with the changes happening around us. We talked about the internet, AI, culture, music, even architecture, and it's all connected, you know?
Yeah, that's what's so cool about these Dynaxioms. They might seem random at first glance, but they all touch on this core idea of trying to find meaning in a world that's constantly shifting.
It's about navigating the complexities of the 21st century with a sense of curiosity and openness.
And maybe even a willingness to question the things we take for granted.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, here's a thought to leave you with, listener. As you go about your day, think about the things you believe to be true, the ideas you hold dear. Ask yourself, are those ideas as fixed as you think they are? Or are they maybe more dynamic, more open to change than you realize? And maybe, just maybe, consider how you can bring a bit of slippage into your own life, into your work, into your thinking. You never know what amazing discoveries might be waiting just around the corner.
It's all about embracing the unknown, right?
Exactly. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. Until next time.
See you then.